In November 2006, former President and Nobel Peace Prize winner Jimmy Carter released his latest book, Palestine Peace Not Apartheid. The book received enormous public criticism despite being on the New York Times bestseller list. Carter's argument centers around the fact that Israeli policy towards Palestinians in the occupied territories is a major obstacle to the peace process.
It's impossible nowadays to wake up in the morning without coming across yet another story about how Jimmy Carter was an anti-Semite, a supporter of Nazis, a supporter of terrorism. Each day, another person steps forward to hurl another accusation against Carter.
The book has been, it's an embarrassment. The book is an embarrassment. And the mistakes in my review of the book, I was just asked to review the book by a newspaper before any of this flap developed. I pointed out about 15 just basic errors of fact. And all the errors of fact go one way, not the other way. And if you read the book, it's bizarre. He doesn't like Israelis. He just doesn't like them.
Because of your incompetence in handling the Iranians with stagflation, and you're cozying up with every dictator, thug, and Islamic terrorist there is. But more importantly, I find it to be vile because your black is hard. It's hard because you're an anti-Semite. And let me explain why I think you're a bigot, a racist, and an anti-Semite. No holds
I think,
barred.
Caller, that the name calling is fine, is
okay.
enough. Thank you. But these are the strong questions that are coming from people. And
Let's talk about anything. Let's talk about his anti-Semitism, his support of Nazism, his support of terrorism. Let's talk about everything, anything, except the facts.
Then he talks about how he bounced Yasser Arafat's child on his knee. This is a murderer. This is a man who Jimmy Carter knows murdered 2 Americans in cold blood, the highest-ranking African-American diplomat in the Sudan. He gave the order. It's on tape. The CIA has it. Jimmy Carter has heard it. He said, let the river run blood. That was the code word in Arabic to kill the 2 American diplomats in the Sudan. And he's bouncing Yasser Arafat's child on his knees and talking about what a wonderful man he was.
The world is full of Mel Gibsons. Let's not forget that. They're not going away. Sometimes they look like Jimmy Carter and sometimes they look like Mel. They're all over the place. And they're just waiting to communicate their hateful rhetoric about Israel or about the Jewish people.
All of his criticism of Israel somehow, some way, must be motivated by anti-Semitism. It can't simply be that Jimmy Carter went to the occupied territories, has gone to Jerusalem, has gone to Bethlehem, has gone to Ramallah, and is appalled at the human rights situation there, appalled by, to quote Haaretz, the apartheid regime that's being constructed there, and that Jimmy Carter, looking at the documentary record, sees what anyone without blinders would see, that the only obstacle to resolving the conflict is Israel's refusal to withdraw. You're not allowed to say that. It's got to be anti-Semitism.
I never have implied that Israel had anything like apartheid inside its own country. But in the West Bank and Gaza, yes. And I also emphasized peace, not apartheid, as my goal. I spent almost 30 years of my life with one of my major goals, bringing peace to Israel and its neighbors. And there's no doubt now that in the occupied territories, a minority of Israelis is choosing to have land instead of peace. And in the acquisition of that land deep within Palestinian territory, they have established not only settlements, more than 200 of them, but they connect the settlements with highways. And the Palestinians are excluded from the use of many of those highways and not permitted even to cross the highways. So there is, in many ways, a much more serious deprivation of human rights among the Palestinians because of his ill-advised policy than even there was in South Africa.
Democratic members of the...
What I find remarkable is that in the mainstream media, there has been hardly any discussion of whether or not Carter's charge about Israel practicing apartheid in the occupied territories is right or wrong. In other words, is his charge about Israeli actions in that area correct? Instead, the focus has been almost exclusively on Jimmy Carter himself and whether Jimmy Carter is an anti-Semite or a supporter of terrorism or a supporter of former Nazis and so forth and so on. And this mirror images what happened to me and Steve.